Geoff Johns and an army of talented artists gather to reintroduce the world to the Justice Society of America, but someone wants to destroy them not just in the 1940s, but every era throughout time. Geoff Johns continues the expansive narrative he's been building across Doomsday Clock and Flashpoint Beyond, with the goal being to bring back the Justice Society of America for their own book, and so far he's achieved that, setting up a murder mystery with a time travel lean to it for the JSA to solve. The issue contains all of the things I really love about Johns' work. It's got a really great intrigue to it, it's got big cinematic vibes to it, and of course, wonderfully rich DC Comics lore. Really deep lore thanks to the 13 child heroes Johns introduced in Flashpoint Beyond book and sets out here as one of the key plots the JSA will be dealing with. Johns also puts in little hints at what he's got cooking with the Watchman and Rip Hunter's gang, who I don't know if will be part of the JSA book or somewhere else, but I am looking forward to seeing what comes of it. A big piece of what Johns builds out this issue is Helena Wayne's part in it all, a plot that we know was from 5G, which would have her investigate Batman's murder as the Huntress. Again, confirming that none of what 5G was meant to be was actually cancelled and went away, being that about 80 to 90% of what 5G was is actually in comics right now. It's just been retooled to what's happening in the DCU right now, so it never was cancelled, it never went away, it was just rejigged a little bit, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Johns and other writers have in store for it. As I said at the top of the video, Johns is joined by a literal army of artists, too many to actually name in the video, but they join John in exploring the DCU, giving each era, setting and character some great looking artwork, and art that signposts each era really well. The art that was used for the 1940s JSA stuff feels like it came from that era of comic books and looks very much like an old comic book, whereas all the new stuff and the stuff set in the future feels very modern and has very modern coloring. Then of course we have Gary Frank doing his Watchmen stuff for a page, which just looks fantastic, and the book's coloring was also on point as well, giving a great warm glow to the story and bathing everything in golds and greens with splashes of cool blues here and there. It made looking at the book and reading it a very pleasant experience on the eyes. The new Golden Age issue 1 was a wonderful exploration of DC's rich and deep history, setting up the return of a fan favourite superhero team along with some really cool side stories that look to expand the DC universe even more than before. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10. The new Golden Age issue 1 heads to November 22nd, 10 years from now, where at Gotham Elementary School, Helena Wayne and her friends make some snow angels, with hers turning into something that looks like a cat or a bat. Helena feels a gust of wind as across the street, she spots a man in a trench coat she has come to know as the Stranger. The being thinks that Helena is growing up so fast as the man disappears, leaving Helena feeling as cold as a grave and wondering what does he want. She hopes the Stranger never comes back as she runs inside the school. She knows that later she came to know this all didn't start with her, but a long time ago, as on November 22nd, 1940, the JSA gather for their first ever team photo. Owlman tells Johnny not to take the photo since his hood isn't right yet, but Alan tells them to capture the moment since the entire team is there. Sandman knows there'll be many more members of the team as the Atom asks Dr. Fate how many kids he's going to have, pleading for the mystical hero to give him an answer, so Kent gives in, saying that he'll have at least one. The hero is over the moon, asking them to do Alan next, but he refuses to know anything about his personal life. Jay Garrick wants to know how many kids he's going to have, but Fate sees a group of lost children, and at the center of it is this Stranger. Fate is overcome by his helmet's power, telling his friends to get the helmet off of him, but Hawkman can't pull it off, finding that it is stuck to his head. Ken says that it was all too much and he saw tomorrow, as on November 22nd, 3022, the JSA's brownstone lays in ruins as a green light blows its way in. The owner of the light knows that the Legion of Superheroes may think they're the only champions of the 31st century, but the Justice Society is about to rise again as the new Green Lantern, Dr. Fate and the Atom begin exploring the building. Adam says he doesn't care about the Legion flight rings when they have the green ring, atomic power and a magic helmet. Fate feels something is off, and while the helmet allows him to see the future, he suddenly sees none, finding that there is no tomorrow. Suddenly, Dr. Fate's neck is snapped by the Stranger, who knows that the being's granddaughter said the same thing 57 years from now, or she would have had he not killed her. He says that it always starts with the death of Dr. Fate, and soon the blood of every generation will be on his hands, and with that comes redemption. In 1940, Kent recovers from his incident, knowing that the voice in the helmet can be loud sometimes. The Atom thinks he doesn't want to put it back on, but Kent knows he never did to begin with, but it feels like it's a responsibility now, and it's his to protect the world. Hawkman knows that they all do that, and Jay thinks that they came together to help the country during wartime, but they help each other as well. Alan agrees, wanting to face what Kent saw together. Kent doesn't know what he saw since it was like a blind spot or a blur to him, sensing it watching them right now. On November 22nd, 1976, Dr. Midnight checks out Dr. Fate, who remembers the first meeting of the JSA when he first had an incident, thinking about the team's children, and there was someone he saw but didn't know her name, thinking it might have been Salem. Fate asks what is wrong with him, but Dr. Midnight thinks it's thanks to the building falling on his head last week. Charles suggests that Kent go and get some rest as Star-Spangled Kid and Power Girl burst into the room. Power Girl smashes up a cabinet, knowing they need to get out there and take down the Injustice Society. Sylvester reminds Power Girl that they are still in training, but the woman knows that these heroes don't want her or him on the JSA, and they'd rather stay as a bunch of old men than allow new blood in, let alone a woman into their ranks. Kent thinks that Wonder Woman would say differently, and she's been a member of the team for decades, and they want a new generation to pick up the baton, and even his helmet to find someone new. In the present, Khalid Nassour is met by Detective Chimp, telling the Chimp that meeting at a bar isn't really his thing, and he thought that they were meeting somewhere where Chimp would tell him how the helmet works. Chimp assures him that they are, and he doesn't need to worry about his job either, since he called the hospital and quit Khalid's internship for him, since he's the new Dr. Fate, and that comes with a lot of responsibilities. Khalid hopes this comes with an apartment as well, thinking that this was a bad idea. Bobo reminds Khalid that his great-uncle Kent had the spirit of Nabu in his helmet, and Nabu was a prick, but this new spirit Howhet is a complete unknown to them, so the sooner they find Deadman and exorcise Howhet from the helmet, they can finally talk. They arrive at the Oblivion Bar, and while the bouncer refuses to let Detective Chimp in thanks to him having no shoes, suddenly Khalid is overcome by the helmet, told by Howhet to look before it's too late. He doesn't know where to look when the helmet begins showing him the future, where Atom and Green Lantern attack the stranger, who with a flick of his wrist obliterates the heroes like they are nothing, proclaiming the fall of yet another JSA. In 1940, Dan asks Derby what the others would think about getting too close to one another, but his friend knows the heroes would all say so what. Soon they overhear a commotion at a newsstand, going to find a new edition of the Gotham Gazette is out, featuring a story on the Soviets' new hero, the Red Lantern, who has recently sunk yet another Navy ship. The Stranger appears in the crowd to watch Alan and Derby as Helena Wayne recounts her first sighting of the Stranger, wondering where he went. The Stranger teleports himself to 1951, where he watches the JSA address Congress, who demand the heroes share their identities with them to prove their loyalty to the US. Helena remembers preparing herself not to be afraid for the Stranger anymore, making a plan to hurt him like how he hurt her. After weeks of preparation, Helena hears a noise in the house, creeping downstairs to find a shadowy man in the house. Helena lashes out with a knife, stabbing the man only to find it's Batman, her father. Later on, Bruce reveals who he is to his daughter, who only asks if her mother knows. 13 years ago, Catwoman's newest heist is interrupted by Dr. Fate, who warns her the treasure she is stealing is the cursed Shen Ring of Howhet, and it is said to drive those who wear it to mad with a glimpse of eternity. Selina isn't too concerned about Fate, lassoing his helmet off as suddenly Kent gets a vision of dozens of dead Dr. Fates at the hand of the Stranger. While he's distracted, Catwoman manages to take Fate's helmet, as the sickly Kent knows that it always starts with Dr. Fate dying, and then moments later, the Stranger is going to kill Selina's daughter when she joins the JSA. Selina doesn't think she is one for kids, so he doesn't have to worry about it because family isn't in her future. In the future, Helena is shown the Batcave as Bruce hopes that she understands why he does it now. Helena knows she does, but pointing to the Robin costumes, she wants to know why they did it. Selina storms in, demanding to know what Bruce did. Selina wants to know how Bruce could expose Helena to all of this after what happened to the others, demanding she not be allowed to put on a cape and cowl. Bruce knows that's not his intention at all, but Selina knows it never is, yet it always happens with these children. As she angrily argues with Bruce, Helena retreats to her room, knowing her mother demanded her father retire as Batman that very night, or she was going to take Helena somewhere where Bruce couldn't find them. Selina of course was bluffing, but Bruce, since he loves Selina, quit being Batman that very night as the Stranger lingers outside Helena's window, knowing it's almost time. In 1848, Corky Baxter meets with a young John Wilkes Booth, telling him him that he'll kill the President of the United States if he doesn't do anything to stop it. John doesn't think he would do that since he wouldn't hurt anyone, wondering why he would do that. Corky knows it's because he blows it as an actor and the whole world will know his name after he kills Abraham Lincoln. John is rather taken by the idea that everyone knows his name thanks to that, as Corky hopes that he won't go killing anyone, as Rip and the others arrive, demanding he come with them. Corky bids John goodbye as the man knows that he will indeed kill Abraham Lincoln now. Rip and the others head into the time stream, telling his team that their target's tachyon trail is cold and they have to find him before they lose him for good. He knows another issue is the 13, who were lost before they were reintegrated into the 1940s. Corky wants to find them, but Jeff thinks that that's a terrible idea, siding with Bonnie and wanting to drop the young man back in the lab since they need to find Clark Dryberg before Mime and Marionette, who at that very moment are painting the baby's room as Nostalgia and Bubastis get ready for their journey into the time stream. Laurie and Dan Dryberg meanwhile know that someone is coming for Clark, wondering if Marionette sent them, but Dan knows it's not them, it's someone else, and their parents will come to understand that it's their generation's turn now. 18 years in the future, Helena hears her mother scream out, as in the present, Deadman suggests finding someone who's an expert in dealing with Egyptian gods to help Khalid. Rip Hunter and his team meanwhile speed through time, telling Corky he's already done enough to help and they're going to do this without him. Helena finds her mother talking with the JSA, who tell her that they have found Batman and he has been murdered. The JSA comforts Selina as Helena recounts how when she was 18 her father was murdered and she swore to find his killer and throw them from the tallest tower in Gotham. She didn't know her mission would take her to the beginning of a conspiracy to murder not only those who fought for justice, but the entire society that started it. Helena proclaims that she is the Huntress, whether her mother wants her to be or not.